Event Horizon is like a marriage between Alien and Hellraiser with an aesthetic that is both beautiful and horrifying. It transcends the genre of cosmic horror into a level of metaphysical horror that raises many philosophical questions. What are the upper limits of technological and scientific advancement? What are the potential consequences of playing with the fabric of reality itself? Do other dimensions and realities exist? And if hell exists, where does it exist? You see what I did there? Conceptually, there is nothing more frightening than the concept of actual hell or evil as a state of existence. Encountering a xenomorph and dying a mortal death is like a trip to Disneyland in contrast to the consequences of the Event Horizon.
Right.
There's a few films in life that really shock you to your core and stick with you, and for me and many other people, Event Horizon was a major one. I initially saw this film later on in my early 20s, but I could only imagine young kids being exposed to this film at an early age. It's something I would highly not recommend. It flopped and did poorly in the box office on its initial release, but has gained a cult following in its later years. It has one of the strongest casts for a horror film ever: Laurence Morpheus Fishburne.
What is real?
And Sam Jurassic Park Neill.
There. Look at this. See? I'm right again. That's chaos theory.
It's hard to think of a horror flick that rivals this duo, but I still think it's extremely underrated and doesn't get nearly the credit that it deserves. The film is loaded with iconography and symbolism. The use of the eye as both a symbol and an aesthetic shows the level of intention that went into the making of this film.
What happened to your eyes?
At the very start of the film, we see a black hole, which then zooms forward to have the black hole appear like the pupil of an eye. It's interesting because black holes absorb all light through their inescapable gravity pull, while pupils absorb light, allowing sight. The idea of a black hole being a massive pupil in space, I think, is pretty fascinating.
Where we're going, we won't need eyes to see.
The corridor that connects different parts of the ship on the Event Horizon is also ocular or eye-like in shape. The gravity drive itself, when open, also appears like a pupil. The ocular aesthetic is pretty much built into every single square inch of the ship on some level. The first nightmare Ware has on the ship, he encounters his late wife. Before you see her with her missing eyes, you see her reflection on this screen. Notice the eye stickers on the top of the screen. Pretty freaking creepy if you ask me. To me, this conveys a break from perception and reality. The eye is arguably one of the oldest and first forms of iconography, as perception or sight is the thing that allows the interpretation of all other things or symbols. The all-seeing eye in the modern world has been seen in a very conspiratorial light, largely due to the dollar bill and Masonic symbolism. But the Eye of Providence, or the all-seeing eye, historically represented the omnipresence of God and can really be seen as a symbol for awareness and consciousness itself. Hence why the use of eye symbolism in this film is so effective and relevant. The director, Paul W.S. Anderson, has said that the geometric aesthetic of the ship took influence from cathedrals in order to invoke an otherworldly Gothic look and feel.
We saw it as being a very Gothic movie. So what we did early on in pre-production is we scanned Notre Dame Cathedral. We built a 3D model of Notre Dame using the towers of Notre Dame as the engine thruster pods. And then all of the antenna arrays are kind of clustered in exactly the same way as the gargoyles in Notre Dame.
Cruciform or cross iconography is also heavily used throughout this film. Ware is floating in front of a cross at the start of the film, invoking the imagery of crucifixion and foreshadowing what's to come. Immediately after this, we see Ware in a space station within a room that looks like a padded cell of an insane asylum. The shot then inverts Ware, hinting at inverted crucifix or the inversion of reality. The Event Horizon itself is also shaped like a cross.
Jesus.
This is the first thing Justin says when seeing the cross-shaped ship. In the initial conversation when the crew is being introduced to Ware, we can see in this shot Smith, who is the one person wearing an actual crucifix on the ship, has his eyes being perfectly obstructed.
Well, thank you for that scientific analysis, Mr. Smith.
The creators of the film said that they took influence from The Shining and wanted to create a haunted house in space type of movie. The flooding of the ship with blood towards the end of the movie was a clear nod to the elevators in The Shining. And with the influence of Kubrick, the level of details in the subtle use of symbolism from scene to scene, like Smith having his eyes obstructed, is not an accident. The film is meant to be analyzed at that level. The symbol of the cross represents the spirit being crucified on the material plane. Smith essentially is blind to what he is getting into.
It folds space. It's called a gravity drive.
When the crew arrives to the event horizon, the docking bay is of course shaped as an eye and has the Roman numerals 13 indicating unlucky. And then they find a corpse floating with its eyes missing, of course, foreshadowing what later on will happen to Weir. The choice of the name Weir, I think, was intentional, meant to sound like where, as in where something is located in space and time. The scientist who invented a teleportation device altering where things exist. Arguably, the most iconic scene of the film is when Miller first sees Weir with his eyes gouged out and the lines that he delivers.
A dimension of pure chaos. Pure evil.
You're going to the mental institution.
And what makes Weir's transformation so horrifying is that he starts out as being a sympathetic and likable character and then gradually transforms into an absolute monster, which is a hard balancing act to pull off. The idea of pure and absolute chaos, a reality where no objective structure or laws exist, you could say a dimension void of all light, including spiritual light, and the concept that you don't need eyes to see there is fascinating because, again, black holes absorb and are void of all light, which would render eyes or pupils entirely useless. And I think all of this perfectly ties into the psychic phenomenon inducing visions and hallucinations in the crew. The physical eyes are irrelevant because the event horizon alters the internal perception of reality itself. Each crew member experiences their own personal hell, essentially trapping the crew in their own perceptions cut off from normal objective reality. This tunnel leading to the gravity drive was meant to resemble the layered 9 circles of hell from Dante's Inferno. When Smith finds the bomb planted by Weir on the Lewis and Clark, a non-accidental name about exploration, the countdown is of course on 6, alluding to 666. At least that's what I would assume. I'm hoping that whatever they're doing with these large hadron colliders, the Higgs boson particle, CERN, and whatever all that stuff actually is, doesn't open up a portal to hell or pure chaos at some point. That would be pretty freaking bad. At the conclusion of the film, when Stark and Cooper seemingly escape the event horizon and are discovered by a rescue crew, it's 72 days later. That choice could have been influenced by a number of things. The death and resurrection of Christ was 3 days or 72 hours. Or on the darker side, if they haven't truly escaped the event horizon and the escape pod is also possessed, the 72 demons of the Lesser Key of Solomon, an occult text about demonology. 72 shows up in a number of ways in spiritual symbolism, but these are my 2 theories on it. I could be entirely wrong. When I was doing research for this video, I came across this YouTube analysis of the film. This video attempts to explain everything away due to the crew having brain damage and it all being hallucinations and not actual hell, despite the director openly saying it is hell. Nearly 800,000 views, and it is the dumbest analysis of a film that I think I have ever seen in my entire life. Trying to rationalize with science a fictional story is itself irrational. I'm tempted to entirely debunk this pseudo-analysis nonsense in a future video, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, I think that about covers it, and if you found this analysis to be unique and insightful, please like, share, subscribe, comment below. Thank you very much, and bye.
You wanted to know where the ship has been. So now you'll find out.
You're going to the mental institution.